Lily never imagined that a simple gesture could change so many lives. It was just another rainy morning when she rushed into the bakery, her mind preoccupied with the stress of work. As she stepped inside, she noticed Walter, the old man who always sat outside. His clothes were worn, and his hands trembled from the cold, but his eyes held a quiet warmth. Something about him made her pause. On impulse, she ordered an extra cup of coffee and a bagel, then handed them to Walter on her way out. "Stay warm," she said with a small smile before hurrying off. Walter was surprised. People rarely noticed him, let alone showed kindness. He held the warm cup in his hands, savoring both the heat and the unexpected generosity. As he ate, he noticed a stray dog sitting nearby, its ribs faintly visible beneath its fur. Walter tore his bagel in half and placed a piece in front of the dog. It hesitated at first but soon ate, wagging its tail. The little creature had been wandering the streets, looking for kindness, and today, it had found some. Later that afternoon, the dog followed a lonely boy named Tommy home. Tommy had just moved to the city and was struggling to make friends. Seeing the dog lifted his spirits. His father, Mark, noticed the change in his son. That night, as they sat together, Tommy told him about the dog, how it had been hungry but had found kindness in an old man. Mark listened and felt a deep sense of gratitude. He realized how much small acts of compassion could mean. The next day, while at the grocery store, Mark noticed a woman struggling to count change for her groceries. Without hesitation, he stepped forward and paid for them. The woman, overwhelmed by the unexpected kindness, thanked him with tears in her eyes. She was a single mother trying her best, and this simple act of generosity meant the world to her. Later that evening, as she walked home, she saw an elderly woman standing at a street corner, looking confused. Recognizing the lost expression, she approached and offered help. The elderly woman, relieved, explained that she had trouble remembering her way home sometimes. The young mother walked with her, ensuring she got home safely. The chain of kindness continued, each act inspiring another. A businessman who had witnessed Mark's generosity decided to raise his employees' wages, realizing the impact small gestures could have. A teacher, feeling inspired, took extra time to tutor a struggling student. A nurse, touched by the warmth spreading through the city, stayed a little longer with a lonely patient, offering comfort through conversation. Days later, Lily found herself stranded at a bus stop in the rain, her wallet missing. A taxi driver pulled up and offered her a ride. "I don't have money," she admitted. The driver smiled and said, "That's all right. Someone once did something kind for me. Just pass it on." Lily realized then how kindness had come full circle, proving that one act could truly change the world. Walter had grown used to being invisible. Sitting outside the bakery every morning, he watched the world rush by, people too busy with their own worries to notice him. But one morning, something changed. A young woman named Lily stopped and handed him a warm cup of coffee and a fresh bagel. She smiled before walking away, leaving Walter holding the small meal with a mix of surprise and gratitude. He had long since stopped expecting kindness, but this simple gesture reminded him that he mattered. As he ate, he noticed a stray dog watching him from a distance. Its ribs showed through its thin fur, and its eyes held the same loneliness he often felt. Without hesitation, Walter broke his bagel in half and placed a piece near the dog. Slowly, the animal approached, cautiously sniffing before eating. It was the first full meal it had in days. The dog, feeling a sense of trust, began following Walter, staying close as if it had finally found someone who cared. Later that day, the dog wandered into the path of a young boy named Tommy. He had just moved to the city and hadn't made any friends yet. The sight of the dog's wagging tail made him smile. He knelt down, petting the scruffy creature, and for the first time in weeks, he felt less alone. When the dog didn't leave, Tommy's father, Mark, agreed to let him keep it. That night, the boy, who had been struggling with loneliness, finally felt a sense of joy again. Mark, seeing how happy the dog made his son, felt a renewed sense of purpose. The next day, while shopping, he noticed a single mother struggling at the checkout counter, counting coins to pay for her groceries. Remembering the joy that kindness had brought to his own home, he stepped forward and paid for her food. The woman's eyes filled with tears. She had been trying to make ends meet, and this simple act of generosity lifted a huge burden from her shoulders. That evening, as she walked home, she saw an elderly woman struggling with directions. Still feeling the warmth of the kindness she had received, she offered to help. The elderly woman, who often felt forgotten, was overwhelmed by the gesture. The conversation they shared on the way home reminded her that there were still good people in the world. Elsewhere in the city, a businessman who had witnessed Mark's generosity began to rethink his own actions. He decided to give his employees a raise, recognizing that small acts of support could change lives. A teacher, feeling inspired, stayed late to help a struggling student. A nurse, reminded of the power of human connection, took extra time to comfort a lonely patient. In just a few days, simple acts of kindness had transformed the lives of so many. Walter, the stray dog, Tommy, the single mother, and countless others had all been touched by a chain of compassion. Kindness had given them hope, proving that even the smallest gestures could change the course of someone's life. Lily had no idea that the small act of kindness she showed to Walter would set off a chain reaction. She had simply bought an extra coffee and bagel for the old man sitting outside the bakery, offering him warmth on a cold morning. That one gesture, however, rippled through the city, touching the lives of a stray dog, a lonely boy, a struggling single mother, and many others. Days later, Lily found herself in a difficult situation. She had lost her wallet and was stranded at a bus stop in the pouring rain. She checked her pockets again, nothing. Without her money or phone, she had no way to get home. Frustrated and exhausted, she sighed, realizing she would have to walk miles in the cold. Just then, a taxi pulled up beside her. The driver rolled down the window and asked, "Need a ride?" I don't have my wallet," Lily admitted, embarrassed. "That's all right," the driver said with a kind smile. "Someone once did something nice for me. Just pass it on when you can." Lily was stunned. It was as if the kindness she had given had found its way back to her. As she sat in the taxi, warmth filling her heart, she realized the truth: kindness always comes full circle. What we give to the world, in one way or another, finds its way back when we least expect it but need it the most. In a busy city where people rushed past each other without a second glance, it was easy to feel insignificant. But one day, a simple act of kindness reminded everyone that even the smallest gestures could create lasting change. Lily, an ordinary young woman, was the first to spark the chain of kindness. Seeing Walter, an old man sitting outside a bakery in the cold, she decided to buy him a warm cup of coffee and a bagel. She didn't expect anything in return, yet that small moment of compassion set off something much bigger. Walter, touched by the kindness, shared part of his bagel with a stray dog. That dog later found its way to Tommy, a lonely boy who had just moved to the city. The dog became his companion, bringing him joy and comfort. Tommy's father, Mark, noticing how much happiness the dog brought his son, decided to pay for the groceries of a struggling single mother at the store. That mother, moved by the unexpected help, later assisted an elderly woman who was lost. A businessman, inspired by seeing Mark's generosity, gave his employees a well-deserved raise. A nurse, reminded of the power of kindness, took extra time to comfort a lonely patient. Each of these people, an old man, a young woman, a child, a businessman, and a nurse, proved that you don't need power or wealth to make a difference. All it takes is a kind heart, and the willingness to act, to change the world around you. In a world where people are often consumed by their own struggles, it's easy to overlook those in need. But every act of kindness, no matter how small, has the power to restore faith in humanity. When Lily decided to buy a cup of coffee and a bagel for Walter, the elderly man sitting outside the bakery, she didn't realize she was setting off a chain reaction. She simply saw someone in the cold and chose compassion over indifference. Walter, deeply touched by her kindness, shared his meal with a stray dog, showing that even those with little could still give. The dog, in turn, found its way to Tommy, a lonely boy, bringing him comfort and companionship. This single act of care reached Tommy's father, Mark, who then helped a struggling single mother at the grocery store. She, in turn, assisted a lost elderly woman, reminding her that kindness still existed. The impact continued to spread. An inspired businessman chose to raise his employees' wages, a teacher dedicated extra time to a struggling student, and a nurse took a moment to comfort a patient who felt alone. Each person, in their own way, proved that compassion is what truly binds humanity together. No one act was grand, yet each one carried the power to change a life. The world became a little brighter, not through wealth or power, but through simple human kindness. In the end, it wasn't indifference that shaped the city, it was empathy.